Oh, CGC 2024. We have made it, we're here, and it's time for us to have some fun. If you're at a console right now, you're at a pinball machine, maybe you're on the other side of this big old pipe and drape line and you're at the cosplay area. If you're having a great time, somebody please give me an oh yeah. See, I love that. You didn't even have to be here, and I could tell that y'all were ready to have a great weekend. My name is Corey. I'm the program manager here at the Cleveland Gaming Classic, and this is the start of all of our programming here on the main stage. If you're curious about some of the great stuff we have, take a look at our website, GameCleveland.com, and you can see all the great offerings in the main stage, our panel zone, at the Mortal Kombat area, and more. Also included in that is our trading card game zone, brought to you by our friends at Great Oaks Tavern. And tonight, well, it's a special night for people like myself. Who am I? I'm a planeswalker, y'all. That's right. I'm a Magic the Gathering stan, and I've been playing, and I've spent way too much on luxury cardboard, but I have this great opportunity and this main stage, and I thought this is a perfect time for us to have a feature match. That's right, it's not just Magic Fest that get to have it, the Cleveland Gaming Classic gets to have it as well. And after 3 rounds, we have some top players that we are gonna welcome to the stage to play out one of their last matches. So, I say, let's stop talking and let's get to some playing. Are y'all ready to see a game? Let me hear you. Come on now, let me hear you. Then let's go ahead and introduce our first competitor here to take his spot at the table. All the way from the TCG zone, please welcome Scott. Scott, I can tell you're as stoic as an angel. Get it, Stoic Angel, one of my favorite rares from Alara. Next up, coming from my great home state of Wisconsin, go Pack Go, it's Summit, everybody. All right, you two, please feel free to go ahead and start shuffling up your deck and present for each other to cut to play in this best of 3 match here in Limited. But in order to have a proper feature match, we also need to have someone to keep the proceedings proper. But I got a properly cool dude to be our feature match judge. Coming all the way from Great Oaks Tavern as well, it's Judge Jim, everybody. What's up, Jim? That's quite the saunter you got there. I don't think Jim expected to get such an introduction, but there we are. All right, our players are cutting. Now this is Magic the Gathering Limited. That means that these players have made their decks from a pre-release kit made of 6 packs. Gentlemen, have you both shuffled and presented to each other? Excellent. Let's go and determine who is going to get the chance of player draw. The classic traditional rolling of the D20. Scott with a 5. Oh, those are some poker craps hands right there. Oh, nat 1. Good thing this isn't D&D. Scott, play or draw? He's going to be on the play. Let's go get our top-down cam. It looks like we're set here. Each player is going to draw 7 and go into mulligan choices. All right. Looks like we have Scott, who's going to be keeping his hand a 7. Summit's going to mulligan his hand here. He's going to draw 7, put 1 back, and go to 6. Judge Jim, as we're resolving this, feel free to pick up that microphone. How are you feeling about Duskmourn so far? Is it a set that you're enjoying? Is it something that you've kind of enjoyed the plane of?
Duskmourn is such a phenomenal story and plane, a house that's devoured a whole world in the sun.
All right, looks like we're keeping after that mulligan, putting 1 back on the bottom. There we go. All right, we're going to start here off with Scott on the play. Classic Mountain Go. Go with a tap dual land. You always got to love to see that, especially when you're playing everything, including a ham sandwich. Starting off on the 2/2, has a nice ability to make things unblockable. Also, key artifact creature. We can see one of the first fears here. This is the cycle of enchantment creatures. I gotta say, Fear of Teeth, though, it's on my short list of ick. This is quite the creature here, as it's something that has a nice utility sack effect. Insidious Fungus, for one. Ooh, and as able to use that to automatically kill his opponent's creature. Getting the red zone, it's first damage of the game. Summit going down to 18. One of the great things about this set is just the interaction between all the naturalized effects and the way the game plays out. Oh, getting this aside, one of the first rares here. It's an example of a welcoming vampire effect, and all of those endurings are really nice as they come back as just an enchantment, which gets to have a perpetuating effect while also still getting on board presence as a creature. Strong card there from Summit. Well, there goes the Enduring. We're using the removal spell, Monstrous Emergence. Reminds me of a similar effect that was in Ikoria, but this is a nice way for him to at least get a creature off the board. But that persisting of the Endurance, well, that's going to cause, I think, quite some ripple effect. We'll see how it does here for Summit. It might get him back after that mulligan with card advantage. Oh, now this is a classic one. It seems in recent sets there's been a lot of 2/2s for 3 that generate some amount of card advantage, including making an additional creature. This is also going to allow for some nice card draw off of that Endurance. Some good Bant card value here. A fun new take on all this artifact equipment, of course, is the ability for the equipment to generate creatures and get auto-equip. It's been a nice design change from WotC in recent history. He goes to equip it onto his previous creature, looking to push through damage and force someone with a trade. Assigned to take the damage, keep the board state. Current life total, 20 for Scott, 13 for Summits. Oh, now this Endurance is really starting to get some cascading value. Getting the artifact creature on the board, which also itself drawing extra cards. One of my favorite common uncommons in the set, a 2/1 that lets you either draw, discard, or just get card advantage. Summit answering with his own Glimmerlight to Scott's. Going in for 4. Scott taking his first damage of the game, 16-13. Card advantage is starting to really play a factor as we're getting to the mid-late game. Will the Enduring Innocence be able to get Summit to victory, or Scott's early aggression plays keep him up with the aggro on the full gameplay? We're topping for 5. Oh! Now this is what we call a limited bomb right here. This is a classic. You don't want to open it in a pack, but you're happy to see it in a draft. Belastrad Worm, a 5/5 trample haste, can't be countered, and has a delirium ability to bring it back. And here comes the red zone. Swinging for 5. 8 total. Had a trade-off, still remains the worm, but it's card advantage versus raw face aggro. This is some real questing beast action over here with a lot less words. see one of our first room cards here. It's a new take on enchantments where you basically get 2 spells in one. You get to choose which one goes first, and of course has a nice frame of being locked. So you have one side that comes in unlocked based on which side you want to cast. You get the effect. Other one, of course, entering with the effect. Ooh, now we're starting to loop that doll, so we're really getting the card advantage going again. Answering with the aggression with my favorite mechanic in the game, which is draw a card. Oh, now that right there is something that gives you shivers. Stay hidden, stay silent. It's a take on a claustrophobia effect, but also has a nice way of generating late game card advantage. Answering that big worm, Summit going into the red zone here, hitting for 4, going to 12. Land, drop, and go. Last turn, Scott had a big play with that worm. Can he answer with another big play here? That's sweet, of course, bringing back the toy. The other half is allowing an attack to put a counter on. It's big game in a very simple card, but it's not inauspicious. Oh! Now that's some good value there. This is a nice interplay here, a nice interaction with this set of Duskmourn. It's a 3/4 with reach for 4 that when it enters, you can discard a card or pay 2 to destroy a room. A really nice answer to follow up that aggression play. Swing for 2 from Scott. I know Summit's making the trade. The swing for 2 answers with a block, trading that toy that he brought back with the room. We lost the Glimmer token, but we got it. Scott's been doing really well at just interplay exchange, trying to keep the pressure up. While Summit's got a nice grip full thanks to that Enduring Innocence. Oh, now this right here is a new rare from the set. It's a good value. It's one that allows you to draw cards whenever you Eerie, so whenever an enchantment enters or a room unlocks. Oh, now this is one that's a little bit new and familiar to me. Clammy Prowler, 2/5 for 4. When it attacks, target attacking creature can't be blocked. A good way to push through damage, but also a really nice blocker considering the board that Scott has put up here. This is a nice way to try to keep up with that card advantage with some good card selection. Discard, draw 2. And now we answer with our own room. This, of course, is Glasswork, one of the really neat room cards that also serves as a removal spell, taking care of that Enchantress creature from the set. And the strength of the enduring value of Glimmerlight right now is starting to show, keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the board. Now this right here is a good card. This is one that is going to help out a lot with the Survivor payoffs. Survivor, of course, one of the reminder keywords that if a creature is tapped in second main phase, you get to generate an effect. That, of course, being a card that was just played, the Escort, that when it attacks, another creature gets +1/+1 and indestructible. A nice common in the format. Oh, and there's one of the signposts on commons, reducing room costs and enchantments as well. Oh, and let's talk about some banned cards in other formats. Ethereal Armor. This is going to be one that's going to really push through a lot of damage here. It's a big push there, using his other 2/5, the Prowler. Wow, pushing through 8 damage off the Prowler. That's a big crack right there. Going to 4 and threatening lethal on the next turn. Really nice play, really well done. Obviously, the choices of attacking and blocking strategically, is that going to lead to a victory? It's up to Scott to answer. It is. Well, that's game one right there. Looks like in favor of Summit, rising to the occasion with his Bant list. Of course, a nice strong start there from Scott, but now we're going into game two of this best of three matches with Summit up one. A really nice play. It looks like that Enduring did quite a lot of work. Wouldn't you say, Judge Jim?
Historically in Magic, drawing cards is good.
Historically it is.
That did work.
Also, the historic keyword, historically good. But Judge Jim, how do you feel about playing scared in pre-release events? Like attacking and trying to save damage and trying to keep your board state when you have lethal on board. Would you advise that to any of our players here?
Pros and cons. Pros and cons. You have to calculate it, not be playing against Corey, the program director.
Subtext is there. Scott on the play. Starting with a nice tap land play here. Answered with one of my favorite turn ones. Of course, Terramorphic Expanse plays well with the Delirium effect in the set. Pass on turn two from Scott. Of course, Summit being a classic Magic player, saving his equity for time and waiting to the end step in Limited. Look at that. That's a professional Magic player right there, using his timing windows at the right time. Now, this is a question a lot of people have in this set. Judge Jim, how do you feel about cheerleaders in Magic?
One of our players in the pre-release put on a letter jersey to be a jock. Unfortunately, did not open the cheerleader.
What a shame. This is a nice role player in the format here. It's a 4/2 with reach. When it dies, gain 2 life, but most importantly, it also has 2 card types, enchantment and creature. Again, playing to that Delirium, and red-green does have some really nice Delirium payoffs. Right now, Summit's debating on this attack here because that survival mechanic, if survive, would do a lot of work. Oh, playing one of the removal spells here, exiling that long neck, and he's going to be able to get with the cheerleader, which is now going to have a flying counter as well. First damage and a sequence of good attack removal plays here from Summit. That's how you do it in Wisconsin. Go, Pack, go. Oh, an answer with a nice 1/1 removal and leaving that room behind eventually. I found that the other side of that, at the beginning of your end step, dealing 1 damage to an opponent, it does do a lot of work in the long game if you can get there. And there it is, just bringing back right away that cheerleader. Getting a chance to make that double spell. That's the way that you win games unlimited. Doing a nice sequence of plays here. But Scott is far and away still in this game as he's going to land 4. And in green-red, it plays that big creature mid-range really well. Oh, and there it is again. That 3/4 that can destroy a room with either 2 mana or discard. I like the flexibility of it. And the discard utility is nice as he discards 4/4 creature for 5. There's that Glimmerlight again. Creates a Glimmer token, and of course, you get that equipment left behind. There she is again, Ethereal Armor. The aura that increases the creature's power and toughness, equal number of enchantments you control, and also gives first strike. Coming in for 6. Scott's taking it. Can't block profitably, making a wise call to take the damage through. Survival trigger as well here is good to note with getting that flying counter on the cheerleader. There's the return of that fungus. Did some good work for Scott in game 1. A nice flexible piece. Scott passing with mana up, going into Summit's next turn. There's a nice big creature there with that Acrobat. That escort again, getting the attack trigger and the indestructible trigger. As we're going here into game 2, Summit up 1. Current life total is Summit at 20, Scott at 12. And passing through with no attacks, presenting, of course, a nice next turn attack with the escort. So right now, Scott has some major choices here going to Summit's end step. Summit with a singular card in hand here. Wow, that's a nice line of sequencing. One of the cool things about rooms, it leaves behind these pieces. You get the full effect, and then you have sacrifice fodder. I do love a good sacrifice kind of style deck. Scott wielding it very nicely here. Scott passing back to Summit. 5 open mana up, of course, has that fungus. And there it is again. The Enduring Innocence back on the board did a lot of great work for Summit. Now that the dust is settled, is he going to be able to still take advantage of that card's ability to get him some good velocity in this game? Drawing cards and more. Scott has choices definitely to make here. Summit passing, Scott going into the end step, using that fungus, it looks like. Destroying the ethereal armor. Something that Summit, I'm sure, has been thinking about all throughout this course of this game here. But Scott gets on tap after that and has a nice position here to take some leverage, even as Summit has put some really good things on the board here and had some great early sequences. Oh, there's that worm again. It did big game in the last one. 5/5, trample haste, delirium to return effect. Can't be countered. Now is coming into the red zone. He's checking for delirium here to see how many card types. Has 3 on his delirium count. That means he's 1 card type away from being able to reanimate that worm, making this attack pretty protected and Summit having to make a difficult choice. Pick 5. That's the classic Luis Scott Vargas play there. Strong answer from Scott. Scott looks unrattled. He looks cool as a cucumber, maybe even an artichoke. Didn't even laugh at my lame vegetable joke, Jim. I'll take the pity laugh. We're definitely getting to the grind here. Summit passes through. Open mana, relevant to the situation. What's going to happen here? It's truly anyone's game still. Back to the red zone. That worm goes. Summit once more has the option to take the block if he wants to. Currently. This time, lining it up. Going to damage. In the end, with the lifelink, with combination of the trample, Summit will end up with 1 life and still have his Enduring Innocence. But Scott answering here, tapping, playing a nice 4-drop, a 5/3 with reach, and has the ability to get a little more card velocity by sacrificing lands. Well played by Scott to wait till the window to play that and get advantage. Now we're starting to get that card advantage going. This is a great eerie payoff here. It's a 1/1. Can put counters on creatures. A nice way to keep building up on this board, even as Scott continues to throw haymaker after haymaker. And And there's the true gas behind that last line with sacking the land, is bringing that worm back. Having the delirium now. Might have the finality counter, but still has a nice board of attackers. Scott getting in with 2 of his creatures, a 3/4, and of course that 5/5 worm. Summit going to take 5 on this full exchange, going down to 11. 11 to 12 in favor of Scott with that swing. Oh, and there's the classic reprint, Pyroclasm, finishing off the rest of that cheerleader. Scott's still left behind with 2 5-power creatures. Escort allowing Summit to draw, continuing to try to build some card advantage and some board despite the 5-power creatures on Scott's battlefield. Summit rebuilding his board here, getting some blockers. Scott going into his untap and draw. There comes that bargain again, dealing 5 damage. Scott's got just a nice suite of removal spells and big creatures. It's kind of what you need in pre-release events like this. Taking the 10, going to 1. We're at those last phases of the game. What can someone put together? He's got plenty of cards and mana to try to put this together. Oh, now this is one of those cool rares. Toby making the big creature on the battlefield. That 4/4 white beast creature that can't attack or block alone, but Toby, of course, is a friend to the beastie itself. Oh, we saw Summit use this to great effect in the last game, drawing some cards with that surgical suite. As he's attaching to that imaginary friend, the beastie of Toby, turning that into 5-power. That was a great response to a big battlefield that Scott had there. Current life total, Summit at 1, Scott at 12. Scott presenting some blocks here. Trying to stay still alive at 1. But if I know anything about blue-white decks, they are not afraid. They don't blush at things like that. Oh, Death Touch, indestructible on a trampled creature. That is a really potent interaction here, allowing the worm to only assign 1 damage to each creature for the Death Touch. Rest trampling through. Wow, that's a way to end a game right there. Match now 1-1. Scott leveraging big creatures and Death Touch. Man, that... See, I don't know about you, Judge Jim, but I remember when they changed those Death Touch rules and everyone was hot on the new trampled Death Touch tech. Scott using it very well here in this matchup.
Throughout the whole pre-release, actually, from what I've seen. Really potent, like you said.
Yeah, that card, the Death Touch Indestructible, really has some nice gas. And I enjoy WotC's recent turn of really putting some good, unique spins on Trick, even though we do get some classic color shifts, like the new Moment of Heroism in black. It's got that weird art with the red in it. What's the name of that card, Judge Jim? Come on, you're being paid the big bucks here. The tens of dollars.
These cards, this is the first time I'm seeing a lot of these, actually.
I envy you.
I just read the notes before today.
I envy you. I'm too enfranchised in spoiler season not to try to figure it all out. Well, we're going to the all-important Game 3. 2 very good games. Summit going to be on the play here. Summit even mulligan, though, in game one and came roaring back quite strong, just as Scott made a good comeback here in game two. They're going to draw their 7, seeing what can be done here as they go into their mulligan choices. Summit into the mulligan train, Scott keeping a 7. You know, I think Scott needs to go to the casinos because he got 777 on his opening hands. See, I got a smile out of him. I got one at least. I got one. See, when I don't try too hard, apparently that's the way you get them. Will that Resplendent Angel playmat fly him to a good keep of 6 cards here? Throwing one back. There goes Summit. He gets his start on the play here, always a nice advantage. Starting with the Kamigawa lands. I love that land, Judge Jim. The Kamigawa series of lands, very nice. Tap land for Scott, always good to see those on turn 1. Ooh, the Thunder Plains. Interfere Surveillance, a nice utility piece, allowing him to surveil on attacks. Also got that enchantment creature, 2/2 Vigilance. That's what we call a rate monster, folks. Of course, one of the first cards played in this whole round, the Playmate artifact creature, 2/2, has that unblockable ability. Very nice. Tit-a-tat. Going into the tank with that Surveil, getting some nice value. Ooh, milling, one of my favorite uncommons in the set here. Some nice manifest action there. They'd take a pair of trades as Delirium gets ever closer for both players. Wrong game, but close. Back comes that Fear. Surgical Suite really showing off its power here. I've yet to play a game of Duskmourn, but I'm going to keep an eye out for it. It did some great work with that toy, plus this enchantment creature as well. And it looks like both of them are stuck on 2 lands, but Scott done what Scott does best, and that's answer threats as they're posed. You haven't used that Pyroclasm early, though. Could be an unfortunateness. And here comes the Cheerleader back. That Survival 2/2 that can get that flying counter. There goes that Glassworks. Again, trading 1 for 1. But as we saw, Scott did that well before and leaving behind the biggest threat, finally finding that island. And there comes the Innocence. Each of them kind of playing signature play lines for each of them with Enduring Innocence. And of course, Scott's penchant for trading. Oh, there goes the bargain. And the big game on that is the Exile Con, meaning it doesn't return as an enchantment. And the Fungus. Scott's finding answers for everything being thrown from Summit. Another Fear Surveillance. This is the kind of pool I would love to open. So many good 2-drops, some nice value pieces out of Summit's deck. Leaving 1, passing the turn. Scott drawing. Still could be anyone's game. It's really been a trade for trade kind of situation here. His 1/2 attacking into Summit's 2/2. And first blood of the game goes to Summit. 19-20, favor Scott. Now using the Fungus to get rid of the Fear Surveillance. Still missing land drops, both sides of the battlefield. It's going to be one of those who can turn the tide on that whole sequence of missing land drops and then be able to maybe double spell. There's the 4th land for Summit. Out comes the Doll. Still has the utility to do some drawing and discard, helping Summit dig to what he needs to continue mounting advantage on this game. Ethereal Armor, which was utilized so well in previous rounds, making the strategic choice here, knowing how well that Scott's been trading things back and forth. And there goes Survivor. Scott's doing some good work putting a 4/4 up. This one, of course, is a survival card that when it survives, it gets to gain 2. Nice way to just continue to grow one's resource, life total, and just general positioning in the game. And out goes that Survivor. Still has the 2/1. Oh, and going into the Glimmer that reduces enchantments and room costs. And there goes the first damage there for Scott, 19 to 18. Favor of Summit. Scott goes and draws a card. Ooh, another Survivor here. This is a 3/2 that gets the Manifest Dread when it survives. That is definitely quite the kind of card that when you can leverage it with a good attack, a trick, maybe a removal spell, good incremental value. And now we're starting to unlock the other room. This means that now we need to start putting some counters on creatures upon attack. And there it goes. Counter goes onto the Glimmer. It's certainly a room that can help you press the advantage very nicely. Plus recur some of those nice ETB effects like the Dull currently on Summit's board. Here comes the block on the 3 for the 3/2. Oh, and there goes the Urge. Having Delirium. Not quite, but the first strike +1/+0 is still doing good work. That card's a Survivor. It's not going to give up. It's not going to stop. It's going to work harder. That card just had a Destiny Child. Doing some more rummaging effects. Oh, discarding the Worm. With that live, getting just even more card advantage out of this game. Scott's finding ways to do it. Going into the red zone with his 3/2. That Survivor survives. It's a Manifest Dread. And there goes that Death Touch Indestructible trick. That was used very well last game to finish it up. And that, of course, means that he's going to be able to survive combat. This means that we get to Manifest Dread. First time we've seen that this game. So Scott gets to look at the top 2 cards of his library. Put one face down. It's a 2/2 colorless creature. Other one goes to the yard. And then he can turn it up if it's a creature for its mana cost. Suddenly turning that trick into a nice 2-for-1. Summit passing through as there is now a 3/2. And, of course, a 2/2 on Scott's battlefield. Summit passing. And there goes that Worm that he discarded last turn with this set's version of the Tormenting Voice. Not only has Delirium, but has Delirium over. It's a big attack here. Scott's been waiting his time, doing well. 10 is taken, going to 9, 16. 7, going to 7, 16 to 7. And gets to continue to build up that board. Man, this set seems to really leverage tricks so well, even in the mid game, not just with an aggressive start. And the handshake, and that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this round. Give it up for Scott, everybody. Well done, sir. Well, we have to now see the results of the rest of this, so we're going to go back to the TCG zone. And, hey, from now or in the future, let us know in the comments from where you're seeing it on the CGC webpage. Do you want to see more things like tournaments like this on the main stage in different areas and more? We're a show built based on you. But for now, we're going to sign off and we give a big thanks. We're going to bring all of our Magicka players over and give them some prizes. Once more, a big round of applause to our players and a big round of applause to Judge Jim facilitating this entire job. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. And he didn't know that he was going to be talking on the microphone, so he took it like a champ. Well done. All right, everyone, have a great night. Get some sleep, because CGC on Saturday starts tomorrow. We're selling some stuff. Yes, that's right. Get it, Gary. I see you. I see you. That's right. Have a great night, y'all. We'll see you. on Saturday.